It was driving me nuts that I couldn't find a tutorial on how in Fusion to wrap knurling around part of a sphere. There was tutorials for wrapping knurling around a cylinder, around a cone, but not a sphere. I found tutorials on how to wrap knurling around a sphere in other CAD programs, but it didn't map one to one. So I have hacked something together that hopefully it can get you through to get knurling on your project. And if somebody knows a better way to do it, please tell me so we all know. I'm just going to walk through what I have done here and warn you about some things that I stumbled with. Ultimately, what I was trying to do was project a curve onto the surface of the sphere and then do a sweep cut operation along the curve that was projected on the outside of the sphere, and then do a circular pattern to that cut. So that's what we're going to walk through here. What I did was create a plane that is offset 1 millimeter, just a small amount from the center plane of this object, and I will explain why when we get to the projection. So you can do it one of two ways, and the way that I opted to do it was to offset this just a little bit. So then I projected, I'll walk through, I'll create it just so we can see the consequences of what I did. So this is a little bit weird. In order to do a projection, you have to create a sketch, and it's going to make you select a sketch plane, but in this one particular instance, it doesn't matter what sketch plane you select is. So just select a sketch plane to start a sketch, and then you're going to come over and you're going to go create, project, include, and then you're going to select project onto a surface. So it's going to give you this prompt now, and it's going to ask for the face. We want to do it on the outside of the sphere, and the curves that you want to project, and this curve. So what I did for my knurling was I selected closest point, and so that just figures out for every point along this curve what the closest point on the surface is. This only works if you have offset a little bit from the center plane. If you did this right on the center plane and you selected closest point, you're gonna get, you're not gonna get what you want. It puts two little dots down here. You can't extrude along it. So in this situation where it determined what the closest point on the outside of the sphere was to this line, this is the cool looking curve it has generated. The other option that I chose not to use, but you could use, it's just going to change this curve, is to change the projection type to along a vector. So what we did was have it just compute what the closest point of this curve to the surface was, and it happens to be this line. You can also say look along a vector. So we've got the same faces and curves, but if I tell it to look along the y-axis, then it will project it straight outwards. So this greatly changes the shape of the curve. You could still probably get what you want by going back into this drawing and pulling them where you wanted, but through a bunch of trial and error, I found what I liked was to continue with the closest point. So now we have the curve we want to sweep along. Now we need to basically make a triangle. I've already made my triangle, but you can see here that it's inset into the face of the sphere. I inset it into the face. The output of this equation is it's 1 millimeter inset. This is a 40 millimeter knob, but you know, whatever inset you want to do, go for it. So then we gotta get out of the sketch. So roll forward. So here is, let's just look at what I have done here. So the profile that I selected was that triangle, and the path I selected was on the outside of this surface. Something to be aware of. So these distances default to 1, and this is something to do with the end of the path, and basically how it projects this geometry. It creates some undesirable things right at the end of the path. So we're going to look at this, and if you zoom in, right at the corner here, it actually hasn't punched all the way through. So I just extended the end out to be sure that it punched through. And then mirrored this across this plane, and then did a circular pattern. It takes a minute to compute. Fusion really doesn't like doing all this stuff, even on a decent computer. But here is the output. Took me way longer than I wanted. And again, if anybody knows a better way to do it, I would love to hear it. Just the last thing I'll do is show you the difference between when you did the projection, if you did project along a vector or just let it pick the closest space. So these curves are based off of the same line, but one of them is project along the y-axis vector, and then one of them is just allowing the computer to pick the closest point on this face. So good luck.